Imagine a world before Olympus, before Zeus, before the stories of gods and heroes. In the quiet spaces between night and day, between life and death, there walks a goddess who sees all, knows all, and guides those who wander. Her name is Hecate. She holds the keys to thresholds between worlds. Tonight, I'll tell you her full story. How she came to be. Why she reigns over sky, sea, and earth. And how her light guides souls through darkness. But as always, before we go into the story, I still need you to do me a favor by liking this video, click the subscribe button, and turn on notification so you don't miss our upcoming videos. And also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and follow her story softly and calm.
Before the Olympians took to the sky, before Zeus's thunder echoed, the cosmos was a quiet, formless sea of possibility. The world had yet to take shape, and the stars flickered like distant thoughts in the endless dark. Winds of time whispered across the void, carrying secrets that no human could speak. In that silence, Hecate emerged. She did not come into being like humans do, with cries or first steps. Instead, she appeared as a presence, a force of awareness, and a thread of destiny woven into the fabric of existence. A child of Titans, she existed before mighty Zeus, before Olympus was forged, and before the first mortal dreams. Time seemed to bend around her. She was liminal, a goddess of thresholds, of spaces in between. She thrived at the edge of night and day, life and death, the known and the unseen. Her presence was subtle but clear. When she moved across the young cosmos, the stars paused, as if bowing to her existence. The Titans, powerful as they were, felt her gaze and understood she would not be swayed by the petty squabbles of war or power. She was different, a being who could hold chaos and order together, who grasped the delicate balance between creation and destruction. Hecate walked through the newborn earth with quiet purpose. Her feet barely disturbed the dew of possibility, yet her influence rippled outward like concentric waves. She was a goddess who acted not with the force of storms, but with the inevitability of night following day. She existed in the in-between moments, in the spaces where destinies are decided unseen, in the pauses between heartbeats, in the sighs of wind through ancient trees. Her bright, knowing eyes reflected the cosmos itself. They shimmered with the paths that mortals would one day take, the choices of unborn gods, and the whispers of events not yet to come to pass. Though she had no throne among the Olympians and commanded no armies of immortal soldiers, her awareness held power. There was a silent authority that bent the currents of the universe just enough to make room for her eventual arrival in the stories yet to unfold. Even the elements seemed to recognize her. The winds carried her thoughts across valleys and seas. The stars leaned toward her presence, and the waters mirrored her image in their still depths. She was ancient, timeless, yet fully awake, present in every moment of the newborn cosmos. And so, in that time, before kings and wars rose, Hecate's story began. It was not a tale of conquest or loud proclamations. It was a story of quiet authority, of thresholds and passages, of spaces between beginnings and endings. She would come to guide mortals and gods alike, a sentinel at the crossroads of existence. Her power, subtle and unwavering, whispered across the void. Here was a force that would endure, shaping the fate of the world not with thunder or flame, but with watchful eyes, understanding, and the gentle inevitability of night itself. Even before the Olympians rose, the universe knew her presence. Hecate was there, watching, waiting, eternal. As Hecate moved through the quiet cosmos, her presence seemed to bring forth the faint outlines of her origins. In the vast stillness of the universe, her lineage whispered like a soft wind among the stars. She was not an accident of the heavens or a solitary force. She carried within her the essence of her parents, Perseus, the titan of destruction, and Asteria, the wandering star and prophetess of destiny. From Perseus, she gained a deep, unshakable strength. It was not a violent power that scorches the earth or shatters mountains. Instead, it was steadier and more enduring. The quiet knowledge that change can be both necessary and unavoidable. That endings often make space for new beginnings. Through him, Hecate understood the world's cycles, balancing chaos with the discipline to endure it. She carried this legacy in the subtle sway of her presence. The cosmos seemed to fold around her as if acknowledging her inherited authority. From Asteria, the falling star who once roamed the night sky to escape Zeus's gaze, Hecate received a different gift: foresight. The shimmer of possibility and the threads of destiny flowed through her like gentle streams of light. Asteria taught her to listen to quiet signals and whispers in the dark, to recognize glimmers of unseen patterns. Through her mother, Hecate learned to see beyond the moment, to understand the ripple effect of every choice, and to navigate time with a calm awareness that few could match. In this balance, the silent strength of destruction combined with the luminous wisdom of prophecy, Hecate's unique power fully bloomed. She was neither chaotic nor orderly. She was a bridge between the two. She moved effortlessly between worlds, between beginnings and endings without faltering. Mortals and gods alike would feel her influence at the edges of their lives, in moments they could not name or decisions that seemed guided by something beyond themselves. Her dual inheritance also shaped her being. In the dark voids between stars, Hecate's steps carried the weight of Perseus' quiet authority. In the shimmer of distant galaxies, her eyes reflected Asteria's foresight. The cosmos itself seemed to recognize the harmony she embodied. When meteors streaked silently across the heavens, they traced the path of her mother's wanderings. When shadows gathered at the edges of day, they whispered of Perseus' unseen power to unmake and remake.
In the empty spaces, they hinted at the power of her father's enduring presence. She was a living testament to their union, a goddess born to balance what many could not perceive. As the newborn universe continued to awake around her, Hecate's form became more defined and certain. She was no longer just a presence at the edge of time. She was a figure of authority, a being whose awareness held both the weight of destruction and the clarity of insight. Even the Titans watched quietly, sensing she was destined for a special place, a presence that would not take sides but would subtly shape events in profound ways. Hecate moved forward, her parentage flowing through her like an undercurrent. She was a daughter of chaos and prophecy, a goddess whose footsteps left traces in the void and whose gaze could see beyond beginnings and endings. Though Olympus had not yet risen, the universe already trembled in quiet anticipation of the paths she would trace, the boundaries she would guard, and the silent guidance she would offer to mortals and immortals alike. In the gentle twilight of creation, Hecate's power and wisdom intertwined, forming a foundation for her eternal presence. She was more than a goddess. She was the balance itself, a living thread woven between destruction and stars, between the unseen and the inevitable. With each step, the cosmos recognized her, not just as a child of Titans, but as a force that would endure forever. The cosmos stirred. The air shimmered with the tension of an approaching storm, one that would echo through time and reshape the heavens. Titans and young gods gathered, their whispers and roars reverberating across the void. Future battles loomed like dark clouds, and the threads of fate shook with anticipation. Yet Hecate stayed apart, moving through the space between them with the calm certainty of someone who sees the whole picture, not just the sparks of conflict. Her neutrality stemmed neither from fear nor indifference. It was a conscious choice, a clear understanding that her power did not rely on loyalty. She was neither tied to the old Titans, nor forced to side with the rising Olympians. In her, the balance of destruction and foresight, inherited from Perseus and Asteria, faced its first major test. She observed the chaos of ambition and rage, watching creation and destruction collide, yet her own presence remained serene and untouchable. Even Zeus, the young king of the gods, felt this. In his fiery determination to reshape the world, he paused at her presence. Here was someone who moved like a blend of shadow and light, carrying authority without needing to speak. He felt a quiet respect, one that required no words. Hecate's neutrality was not weakness, it was strength. She did not use her power to control, yet anyone who glimpsed her understood that she could if she ever decided to. And so the Titanomachy raged around her. Thunder shattered the silence, lightning tore across the skies, and the earth shook with each clash of wills. But Hecate's influence was different, far-reaching yet subtle. She commanded the tides and the depths of the sea, felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, and traced the flight of birds across the open sky. Earth, sea, and sky bowed in recognition, not out of fear, but through an understanding of her quiet authority. Where others sought to conquer, she simply existed, and that was enough. Her threefold presence, hinted at in the murmurs of mortals, allowed her to move freely among these realms. One step could take her across the untouched sands of deserts, another over the rolling waves of the ocean, and another soaring through the winds of distant mountains. She was everywhere and nowhere, both observer and judge, her essence woven through the fabric of the cosmos. In this way, she remained untouched by the turmoil, a constant in the chaos. Even in stillness, her influence spread. The Titans and gods, whether in battle or council, felt the subtle guidance of her presence. Warriors braced in her shadow, sensing a change in wind or tide that could shift the course of a fight. Mortals far below would later whisper of unseen protectors, of doors opened or paths revealed, never realizing it was she who had moved unseen through the balance of realms. In the quiet after the most violent clashes, when the echoes faded and the smoke of conflict drifted into nothingness, Hecate stood alone in the stillness. She had chosen no side, yet her power had been felt by all. In that moment, the young King Zeus, already aware of the need to command, yet humbled by her presence, recognized her as a force unlike any other, a Titan among gods, unbound, eternal, and always watchful. Hecate's influence extended beyond the struggle of battle, beyond the clash of thrones. She was the quiet ruler of thresholds, of worlds between worlds, and of the silent spaces connecting life and death. Here, in this balance, she found her purpose, a presence that could not be swayed, a guardian of the cosmos, untouched by fear or loyalty, yet woven into the very fabric of all that was to come. And as the dust of the Titanomachy settled, Hecate moved forward, her threefold essence gliding between earth, sea, and sky, ready to observe, guide, and shape the quiet moments that would follow the storm. Even as the dust from the Titanomachy settled, Hecate's presence lingered, quietly connecting gods and mortals. She was more than what people could see and more than any single story could tell. To some, she had always been there, a shadow behind the light, a soft breath between worlds. Yet her true identity and origins remained elusive. Legends spoke of her beginnings in different ways. Some described her as the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, born from a secret union under the waning moon, her eyes reflecting the knowledge of seasons and the flow of life and death. Others claimed she was even older, emerging from the depths of Tartarus and the eternal night of Nyx, her first cry a tune of darkness and possibility that echoed through the void. Yet another tale suggested a link to the primordial seas, the child of Phorcys and Quito, carrying the currents of ocean mystery in her veins where monsters slept and secrets stirred. Each story held a truth, but none captured the whole picture. Hecate existed in all these forms, or perhaps in none entirely. She was a being of thresholds, moving between beginnings and endings. To see her completely was impossible. To know her fully was not allowed. Her essence flowed like a river through many channels, never confined and never still.
Her eyes, often seen in dreams or at the edges of sight, reflected this complexity. One moment they showed the calm understanding of a mother of harvests. The next, the stark, unflinching wisdom of night and shadow. Her presence at the edges of the world, in crossroads and doorways, showed her ability to be many things at once: protector, guide, observer, and arbiter of fate. Despite all their power, the gods often found it hard to understand her. Zeus, who commanded lightning and storms, grasped her neutrality but not its depth. Demeter, who felt the ache of life's cycles, recognized a kinship in Hecate's quiet authority. Nyx, the embodiment of night, nodded in silent recognition of a child who could navigate both light and dark without losing herself. Mortals also felt the draw of her many-sided nature. They left offerings at Crossroads, lit torches in her honor, or whispered prayers in the dead of night, sensing that she existed in many forms at once: a guardian who could be a comforting mother, a guiding witch, or a distant shadow. Each form was a reflection of her infinite self, while still being distinctly her. Hecate moved through these truths with calm certainty, flowing through stories and generations like a gentle breeze. She didn't need to assert herself forcefully or demand recognition. Her essence shone in moments of change, in the pause between one world and the next, in the silence where fear and hope intertwined. In every whispered legend, in every story passed from parent to child, from temple to forest, Hecate existed, known yet unknowable. She contained all her origins and none at the same time, a being caught in the folds of reality, neither fully here nor entirely there. In this, she was complete. In this, she was eternal. As night softly fell over the world, the boundaries of reality blurred, and Hecate moved once more, stepping lightly between the realms she claimed as her own. Whether she was the child of Zeus and Demeter, of Tartarus and Nyx, or of Phorcys and Quito, it mattered little. Above all, she was herself, a guardian of thresholds, a keeper of secrets, a presence that would watch, guide, and endure long after the songs of battle and echoes of legends had faded. Hecate moved quietly through the corners of the world, where shadow met light and stone met soil.
Everywhere she went, her presence left whispers of meaning. Mortals and gods recognized her not always by sight, but by the signs she left behind, objects and symbols that carried the weight of her power and the trace of her authority. She was often seen in triple form, a vision of three faces looking in different directions at once. One face looked toward the past, remembering what had been. Another faced the present, observing the world as it unfolded. The third, ever watchful, peered into the future, seeing the paths that lay ahead. In this trinity, Hecate embodied all the thresholds she guarded, the intersections of time and choice, the quiet spaces between one life and the next. Keys were her constant companions, small and simple, yet full of meaning. They could open doors, yes, but also unlock understanding, wisdom, and hidden truths. To hold a key blessed by Hecate was to hold a piece of her insight, a promise that no barrier, no matter how imposing, could stay closed forever. Torches flickered softly in her hands, illuminating the paths that others could not see, casting light where shadows threatened to hide the way. They acted as both a guide and a warning, gentle flames that revealed without blinding. Serpents, winding and silent, often slithered in her wake, living symbols of the cycles of life, death, and renewal. Their silent presence mirrored her own, always there, observing, patient. In some tales, she was said to wear a crown of serpents, each one connecting her to the hidden currents of the earth and the underworld. Even the forms of the world carried her mark. Sacred geometry, patterns etched into temples, fields, and stones, echoed her understanding of balance, proportion, and cosmic order. The lines, circles, and triangles were not mere decoration. They expressed the invisible forces she controlled, tangible echoes of a power that was otherwise hard to grasp. Mortals learned to honor these signs. At Crossroads, where three paths met, they would leave offerings, small meals, coins, or simple tokens of thanks. They lit torches on moonless nights and whispered prayers into the stillness, trusting that Hecate's gaze would find them and that her guidance would reach them. Her symbols became bridges between worlds, the mortal and divine, the seen and unseen, the living and the dead. Yet even in her objects and icons, there was a softness, a gentle rhythm that invited contemplation rather than fear. Each key, torch, and serpent was not just a tool of power, but a reminder of her constant presence, the quiet attention that threaded through life like a steady pulse. Recognizing her was not merely worship, it was understanding, pausing to acknowledge the spaces where life changed, where choices were made, where transformation happened. In the quiet of the night, when the wind rustled leaves and shadows stretched long across the earth, Hecate's symbols glimmered faintly, resonating with the hum of the unseen. They were invitations to notice, honor, and follow the soft guidance of a goddess whose reach was not confined to one realm. She existed everywhere thresholds appeared, in doors, in decisions, in moments when the world seemed to hold its breath. Through keys, torches, serpents, and sacred shapes, Hecate's presence became tangible, a comforting, guiding force that moved unseen, yet always felt. Mortals did not need to see her full form to know she watched, that she listened, that she walked alongside them between worlds. In these quiet, sacred signs, her eternal essence could be recognized. A gentle, enduring reminder that the spaces between, the thresholds, the crossroads, the shadows, and the light belonged to her, and that she belonged to them in return. Where the world shifted from one state to another, there she was, Hecate, the quiet guardian of thresholds. Just as her torches had lit pathways and her keys had opened hidden doors, She now stood at the literal and figurative edges of life, the spaces that separated one moment from the next. Doors, gates, and city walls bore her unseen mark. Mortals passing through them might not always feel her presence, yet she watched, steady and patient, guiding what moved from one side to the other. In villages and busy cities, she lingered at the gates, where traders entered with heavy packs and children darted past on errands. She was in the quiet pause of a latch closing, in the faint creak of a hinge, in the shadows cast by the doorway. Her guardianship was not intrusive or forceful. It was subtle, like the gentle breath of wind shifting a leaf into place. She shaped the flow of comings and goings, the rhythms of everyday life, protecting homes and hearts alike. Crossroads, where three paths met under the sky, were her sacred domain. Here, travelers left small offerings, a coin, a meal, a whispered prayer. It was not an act of fear, but of respect, a recognition of the spaces where choice weighed heavily, where decisions could alter the path of a life. Hecate's eyes were on these moments, where one path ended and another began, where the known met the unknown. She guided those who paused, unsure, offering quiet clarity through the flicker of torchlight or the slither of a serpent's path across a stone. Her influence stretched beyond mortal thresholds. Cities, surrounded by walls of stone and vigilance, were under her subtle control. She could see the places where danger might enter, the hidden gaps that human eyes could not catch. Leaders, unknowingly guided, made decisions that kept their people safe. The invisible lines of her realm extended across boundaries of both earth and spirit, connecting the mortal world to the divine. Yet her guardianship was not limited to safety. Hecate watched over the delicate transitions of the soul, the quiet shifts that marked birth, death, and everything in between. Women in labor felt her gentle presence, a steadying reassurance amid pain and uncertainty. Warriors on the battlefield sensed her watchful gaze, a protective weight at the edge of fear. She guided what had no name, the fleeting movements of existence that humans could not fully understand but instinctively felt. Even the night seemed shaped by her will. Moonlight spread across Crossroads, casting silver lines that felt almost deliberate, as if drawn by an unseen hand. Shadows stretched and receded in her rhythm, creating silent corridors for wandering thoughts, for travelers' steps, for choices not yet made. Every gate she watched, every path she touched, became a quiet reminder that transition was not to be feared. The threshold was a place of potential, a space where change was honored, where life and death, ending and beginning, intertwined. Hecate's presence was quiet but undeniable. She existed in the pause between a heartbeat and a breath. In the moment a door opened to show a new world. Mortals moving through her domains often did not notice, yet they carried her influence with them. A sense of calm, gentle guidance, a knowing that the spaces between were alive, watched, and protected. In these moments, she showed her true breadth of power, not through confrontation or noise, but through the soft authority that governs all transitions. Thresholds and crossroads were not merely places to pass through. They were living, breathing reminders that Hecate moved among them, connecting the mortal and the divine, the familiar and the mysterious. And as long as doors opened, paths converged, and life shifted from one state to another, her presence lingered, calm, constant, eternal. From the quiet spaces between doors and crossroads, Hecate's gaze reached deeper, beyond the living world, into the shadowy places where souls roamed. She became the silent guide for those leaving the mortal realm, the unseen hand that eased the journey from life to the unknown. It was not a rushed passage. There was no fear in her presence. Instead, she offered steady, gentle vigilance that made the crossing feel less like an ending and more like a transformation. Warriors who had faced the chaos of battle felt her watchfulness even before their last breath. In the heat of conflict, she lingered at the edges of awareness, a calm presence that shielded those vulnerable moments. When the clash of swords and shields faded into silence, Hecate's torch lit the way for souls to follow. She created a silver thread connecting the living world to the threshold of the underworld. Her guidance was neither loud nor commanding. It was a soft, patient encouragement, like the whisper of wind guiding a leaf to its final resting place. She also moved among those bringing life into the world. In the quiet hours of night, when a mother labored in her room, Hecate's presence offered gentle comfort, a steadying hand in the face of fear. She did not hurry the moment, nor demand it. She simply ensured that the passage between the known and the new was marked by calm and quiet strength. Her torch flickered softly in these intimate spaces, symbolizing the careful attention she paid to both beginnings and endings. Beneath the world of mortals, at the edge of death, Hecate's power was clear. She moved through the thresholds of the underworld, guiding lost souls and balancing the dark edges, making sure the passage from life was orderly and gentle. She was not limited to a single path or direction. Her gaze spanned earth, sea, and shadowy realms. No soul, no matter how weak, slipped through her awareness. Even in the deepest dark, where echoes of fear might hang, her presence provided quiet reassurance, a promise that the journey was seen and held. However, her role was not only protective. She connected the worlds, acting as a bridge between the mortal and the divine, the living and the departed. Where grief and fear threatened to consume, she brought calm perspective. Where hesitation lingered at the brink of change, she offered subtle guidance. Her influence was gentle but constant, reminding everyone that transitions, whether in life, death, or the quiet spaces in between, were sacred, watched over by a force older than any city, ruler, or the rhythm of the seasons. Those who lingered at her presence might sense a subtle change in the air, a quiet weight that neither pressed heavily nor lightly, but invited attention, reflection, and trust. Hecate moved with patience, her torch casting a soft glow that revealed paths not in sharp contrast, but in gentle suggestion. She did not force souls onward, nor did she command the living. She simply watched, guided, and accompanied, letting the journey unfold as it should. In this way, Hecate became the ultimate witness to the flow of existence, the eternal bridge between what was leaving and what was emerging. Her watchful eyes held the calm authority of someone who knows both worlds, understood the cycles of life, the certainty of death, and the sacredness of every threshold in between. Mortals and gods alike could trust that when the time came to cross, the path would be lit and the way watched over, guided by the quiet and steadfast presence of the Watcher of Souls. Where Hecate walked, people noticed, through small gestures and traditions passed down through the rhythm of days and seasons. Although she existed between worlds, she remained close to the human heart. People turned to her at thresholds, doors, gates, and crossroads, offering simple tokens of respect: a sprig of rosemary, a dish of honey, a carefully placed candle. Each small act acknowledged her presence, a quiet message that said, "We see you, and we honor your watchfulness." At twilight, where three roads met, women and men left what they could spare: coins, grains, or a loaf of bread. These offerings were never grand because Hecate did not want showiness. Instead, she valued sincerity. The crossroads, where paths diverged and choices lingered, became sacred spots under her gaze. Mortals paused there, even for a moment, leaving gifts as a way to seek comfort from her unseen guidance. Seasonal ceremonies also signified her influence. When the veil between worlds was thin, between harvest and frost, between planting and spring, villages gathered quietly, moving carefully with soft voices. They spoke her name gently, knowing Hecate listened not to loudness, but to the depth of feeling behind each word. Torches flickered in the darkness, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to honor her presence. In these moments, the world felt small, and the divine felt close. Some devoted themselves to quiet withdrawal, retreating to rooms or groves where they could be alone, offering meditation, reflection, or whispered prayer. In the stillness, they sensed her nearby, an unseen hand steadying them, a calm breath matching their own. Hecate did not demand attention through spectacle. She revealed herself in subtle ways, in the quiet recognition of human devotion, in the gentle ripple of energy when someone paused to notice her. Her bond with mortals was not one-sided. As people honored her, she spread her influence, protecting homes, guiding decisions, and easing transitions. She intertwined with daily life in often unnoticed ways, felt more than seen. A farmer leaving an offering at dawn might find his field unusually calm. A traveler pausing at a fork in the road might sense a direction without knowing why. These small signs, quiet blessings, reminded mortals of a guiding force always nearby. Even in the quietest moments, when the world felt hushed and still, Hecate listened. She moved along the edges of night, where shadows gathered and doors hid secrets. In this delicate space, she heard it. A cry, sharp yet trembling, carried through the forests and across the fields. It was a sound so human, but touched by fate. It stirred the very threads of the world. Persephone's voice reached her first, woven with a tremble of fear that floated through the air like a fragile ribbon. Hades had taken her suddenly and swiftly into the unseen depths. Most would have missed the subtle shift of destiny, the quiet but urgent call. Yet Hecate, with her gaze spanning earth and sky, stood alert. She felt the pulse of events like one might sense a distant wind through a window. The cry was not just a call, it was a signal, a disturbance in the harmony she observed. Her presence did not make a loud impression. She moved silently along the borders of reality, her feet brushing against leaves and grass. The soft rustle of her robes blended with the night. She came neither to interrupt nor to challenge, but to witness and prepare. Hecate knew that the balance of life and death, of mortal and divine, depended on being attentive and having the patience to act with precision when the moment required it. As the underworld shadow climbed higher, Hecate's torches, carried in thought, glimmered like distant stars against the darkness. She traced Persephone's path with focused care, noticing the shift in the air and the faint tremor of the earth beneath Hades' chariot. Even in the vastness of the unseen, she picked up on the smallest details: a leaf falling too soon, a whisper of wind, the softest echo of a step. Every tiny sign guided her understanding, every fragment of sound a thread leading to the larger picture. She witnessed the abduction, but she was more than a passive observer. Her connection to mortals and gods alike allowed her to feel the tremor of fear and the undercurrent of destiny intertwined. Persephone's cry was not just sorrow, it was a turning point, a threshold of fate. It was a moment where Hecate's quiet watchfulness might make the difference between despair and guidance. She did not hurry or shout. Instead, she moved with calm certainty, her attention sharpening like a blade's point that only strikes when needed. In that darkness, she became a quiet anchor. Although the world felt engulfed by shadow, Hecate's awareness extended beyond sight. She listened to the delicate rhythms of grief and fear, the muted sounds of struggle and surprise. She understood the significance of events that mortals could hardly perceive, yet she felt them deeply, intertwined with her timeless essence. And so the cry continued, and Hecate followed, not as an intruder, but as a guardian of thresholds, a guide waiting for the right moment to step in. Her presence connected worlds, linking mortal pain with divine attention, shaping the unfolding story with care. In that stillness and quiet watchfulness, the seeds of action were planted, and the vigilant goddess readied herself for the role she alone could fulfill.
The night stretched on calmly as Hecate followed the faint trail left by Persephone's abduction. Each step was careful and deliberate, as if she were walking along invisible threads connecting earth, sky, and the hidden realm below. She did not rush. There was no need. The rhythm of her movement matched the quiet heartbeat of the world, a steady pulse guiding her forward. Hecate's eyes, sensitive to shadow and soft light, followed the path where mortals rarely dared to look. Leaves bent under unseen pressure, faint footprints pressed into the soft earth, and the scent of disturbed air all spoke to her in whispers only she could hear. She carried her knowledge like a lantern, lighting the unseen with quiet confidence. Her magic was not a blaze, but a gentle flow, weaving around obstacles, revealing what needed to be known while keeping the balance intact. With each step, she envisioned the mortal girl hidden from her mother's sight, the young goddess taken into the darkness. Hecate felt the tension of moving worlds, the pull of the underworld, the ache of the mother left behind, the invisible threads of fate bending and stretching. Her role was not just to follow, but to guide, preparing the way for a meeting that would require wisdom as much as strength. Her torches flickered softly, casting light on the hidden corners of the night. Branches arched over narrow paths, stones marked with old symbols, and the quiet sounds of distant rivers became landmarks on a journey known only to those who could see beyond the surface. Hecate moved through them gracefully, careful to leave the natural order unchanged, her presence a soft echo in the corridors of fate. Though she had watched during Persephone's capture, she was now transforming. Her foresight guided each step, anticipating the actions of gods and mortals alike. She understood the complex web of events unfolding, how one choice or hesitation could ripple through the realms. And so she moved like a guardian spirit, a shadow among shadows,
preparing for the moment when guidance would become intervention. Along the way, Hecate whispered to the winds, the trees, and the quiet creatures of the night. She asked nothing, but received plenty in return. The murmurs of those who had crossed her path, the subtle shifts of leftover magic, and the echoes of grief and fear. Each whisper and signal informed her, strengthened her resolve, and brought her closer to where Persephone's path met the edges of Hecate's understanding. The journey was neither hurried nor lonely. Hecate's presence filled the air with calm vigilance, an unseen reassurance to the lost and fearful. Though darkness lay heavy across the land, she moved with certainty, gently guiding unseen threads and shaping the story without forcing it. Step by step, shadow by shadow, she became both witness and guardian, transitioning from the quiet patience of observation to the purposeful action that only one who walks between worlds can perform. By the time the first hints of dawn touched the horizon, Hecate had followed Persephone's path almost to its end, ready to fully embrace her role as guide, protector, and mediator. The world held its breath, and she, timeless and steady, prepared to meet the coming moment with wisdom that spans generations, realms, and destinies. The first rays of dawn softened the edges of the world, spilling pale gold across fields and forests. Hecate moved quietly through this gentle light, her presence as certain as the wind weaving through tall grass. She followed Persephone's path and traced the invisible threads of fate. Now, she approached the place where worlds would meet, where negotiation, hope, and resolution might unfold. Demeter, grieving yet determined, waited at the threshold of the unseen. Her eyes were heavy with sorrow, but alight with resolve. Hecate's arrival did not come with sound, but with a calm that settled over the earth. The goddess of harvest and the goddess of thresholds regarded one another with understanding. They did not rush their words. They flowed like rivers in early morning, deliberate and careful, shaping meaning with patience. When Hecate spoke, her voice was soft yet steady, carrying the weight of experience. She guided Demeter through the choices ahead, revealing possibilities that were hidden from the grieving mother. Each suggestion, each careful word, was not a command, but an invitation to see what the mind alone could not. The paths of gods and mortals entwined, the delicate balance between grief and action, the subtle currents of fate that required respect, not force. Together, they traced Persephone's journey, the echoes of her cries still resonating in the shadowed corners of the underworld. Hecate, with her calm wisdom, mediated between hope and despair, urgency and patience. Her eyes, attuned to both mortal and divine hearts, read the currents of thought and emotion, guiding the conversation toward understanding. Hades, god of the underworld, stood in the deep shadows of his realm. His presence was both daunting and inevitable. Even here, Hecate's calm authority rippled through the air. She did not confront with anger or demand. She offered clarity, a gentle illumination that allowed reason to surface amid grief and possession. Her role was not to command, but to bring balance and coherence to the turbulent forces at play. Through measured words and subtle gestures, Hecate helped create an accord. They acknowledged Persephone's path, considered her return, and gently affirmed the cycles of life and death, of light and shadow. Demeter's sorrow softened, tempered by hope. Even Hades, who wielded the inevitability of endings, recognized the quiet strength and insight Hecate carried. In the stillness that followed, Hecate lingered at the edges of the meeting, a silent witness and steady guide. She bridged worlds once again, smoothing the tensions between grief and power, between mortal and divine. In that calm, measured space, the threads of fate were woven with care, shaping the seasons yet to come and marking the eternal rhythm of return and departure, loss and reunion. As the meeting drew to a close, the world seemed to exhale. Hecate remained, a gentle force at the intersection of realms, her eyes reflecting the depth of wisdom that comes from walking between worlds. The story of Persephone was no longer just one of sorrow. It was now a story of guidance, mediation, and quiet strength, a testament to the enduring power of Hecate, the goddess who walks the thresholds and brings balance where it is needed most.
The air was hushed, as if the world paused to witness a new rhythm. Persephone moved gracefully between light and shadow on her journey, which would echo through future seasons. Hecate followed her like a silent compass, guiding the threads of fate with calm and patience. The agreement between Demeter and Hades had been made, but the cycle was more than just words. It represented a dance between earth and sky, growth and retreat, warmth and chill. Hecate watched this delicate interplay, sensing the subtle flows of life and death beneath the world's surface. Each unfurling leaf and deepening shadow at dusk carried the mark of this sacred bond. As Persephone traveled between realms, Hecate's role became clear and unshakable. She was the guide of transitions, offering a gentle hand that eased the passage between different states of being. Not a force of control, but a quiet presence. She bridged the mortal and divine, the living and the unseen. She saw both the sorrow of farewell and the hope of return, providing steady reassurance for all who experienced life's cycles. Villages, forests, rivers, and mountains all felt the subtle touch of her protection. Farmers learned to read seasonal shifts, unknowingly following Hecate's guidance as they planted, harvested, celebrated, and mourned. Mothers whispered her name at doorways, seeking her safeguard for children stepping into the unknown. Warriors and travelers sensed her comforting presence as they crossed both physical and spiritual boundaries. In those quiet moments when day met night, Hecate lingered at Crossroads, watching over souls transitioning between waking and dreaming, sorrow and hope. Her triple form, torches and keys, were more than symbols. They represented the harmony she brought to existence's cycles. Persephone's seasonal journey transcended myth. It became a living rhythm, a pulse marking every meadow, grove, and shadowed path. Hecate, eternal and steadfast, remained the silent anchor, ensuring that transitions were embraced rather than feared. The balance between light and dark, growth and rest, life and its pauses was woven into the very fabric of the world. Wherever thresholds were crossed or change stirred hearts, mortal or immortal, Hecate's essence moved unseen, a source of gentle reassurance. She fully embraced her role as a keeper of passages, a mediator of cycles, and a presence felt even when unseen. As frost touched the leaves and blooms greeted the sun, the cycle breathed life once again. Hecate stood at the center of this sacred flow, her quiet authority, both subtle and strong, reminding all that transitions, although often quiet, hold their own power. The world turned, seasons repeated, lives began and ended, all under the careful watch of the goddess who walks between realms, ensuring that change is met with grace and that life's rhythm continues uninterrupted. As the seasons settled into a quiet rhythm, Hecate's presence lingered like a gentle shadow at the edges of the world. She moved along unseen thresholds, where doors opened to unknown paths, where rivers curved into hidden valleys, and where the veil between the living and the departed thinned just enough for her to guide them safely. There was no hurry in her steps, no clamor in her voice, only a calm assurance that seeped into the soul and eased the heart. She was the eternal watcher and a guardian of beginnings and endings. Every crossroad she passed whispered stories of travelers seeking direction, of lives caught between choices, and of moments filled with potential. Hecate moved among these moments like a steady wind. Though invisible, she was deeply felt. Her triple form reflected the many ways she touched the world, past and present, seen and unseen, mortal and divine. Souls journeyed under her quiet guidance, from birth to passing, from shadow to light. Mothers whispered her name as they brought children into the world. Wanderers and seekers found reassurance in the subtle shifts of night and day. Even the stars seemed to bend toward her favor, each one a silent witness to her rule over the boundaries that mortals often feared to cross. Her torches illuminated hidden paths, and her keys unlocked the mysteries that humans and gods could not always understand. Yet there was no display of power, only the gentle unfolding of her wisdom. This was a reminder that liminality is not chaos, but a space where transformation quietly and surely blooms. The world, in all its vastness, felt her touch, an unseen hand smoothing transitions, guiding destinies, and ensuring that no threshold went unguarded. Her authority was neither loud nor demanding. It was woven into the very fabric of existence. Forests, mountains, rivers, and cities all bore subtle traces of her presence. Even when she vanished from sight, she remained, an eternal force bridging the realms of gods, mortals, and spirits. Time itself seemed to acknowledge her, bending softly around the spaces she occupied and honoring the balance she maintained. And so she continued, moving calmly through the cycles of the cosmos, her gaze encompassing all that was, all that is, and all that might be. In her quiet vigilance there was comfort. For every ending there was a beginning, for every shadow a light, for every soul a guide. Hecate existed beyond measure, beyond the confines of mortal understanding, yet was intimately connected to every life, every choice, every threshold. In the hush of twilight, when the first stars blinked awake and the world exhaled its day, her presence was everywhere and nowhere. She was the whisper at the crossroads, the flicker of a torch in the darkness, the subtle key turning the lock of destiny. Throughout it all, Hecate remained eternal, mysterious, powerful, and unshakably serene, an unseen guardian of the spaces between, where the threads of life, death, and transformation intertwined. The world, guided by her calm authority, continued its endless rhythm. Seasons shifted, souls traveled, and thresholds waited to be crossed. In every quiet corner of existence, Hecate's essence was felt, a timeless reminder that liminality should not be feared, but honored, embraced, and revered. As the last echoes of the myth fade, Hecate's presence does not vanish. She lingers, not in grand deeds or dramatic turns of fate, but in the quiet spaces between moments, at the edges of night, in the gentle sway of shadows, along the paths where torches plow. These next stories are not of battles or abductions, nor of gods convening in Olympus. They are whispers of her essence, reflections of her light, and the ways she moves through the world unseen yet deeply felt. Here, at the crossroads of imagination and slumber, we will walk alongside her. We will follow the torch's glow, hear the subtle whispers of choice, glimpse the secrets of transformation, and feel the calm of night under her watchful gaze. Let us step softly now into her world once more, not as spectators of a myth, but as travelers invited to rest in the gentle rhythm of her eternal guidance. As night wrapped the world in its quiet embrace, Hecate moved through the places where shadows gathered. These were the soft corners where light gave way to darkness. She walked slowly, with no need to rush. Time itself seemed to stretch in her presence, as if the night paused to listen. Each step she took was deliberate, almost unnoticed, yet it carried a sense of purpose. Her torches shone with a gentle, steady flame, casting long beams that outlined the unseen and revealed delicate truths. The world around her whispered softly, the rustle of leaves on a quiet path, the distant sigh of water flowing through secret channels, the soft steps of creatures in the dark. Each sound stood out in the stillness, yet it never felt overwhelming. Hecate listened with every part of herself, not just her ears. In those whispers, she heard the stories of life, the small victories, the hidden fears, the quiet hopes that mostly went unnoticed. Tonight, she followed the invisible threads connecting moments and lives. A child far away floated in a fragile dream, easily disturbed by a stray thought. Hecate's presence brushed against that sleep, smoothing its edges and filling it with warmth. In a distant village, a tired warrior sat by a flickering fire, weighed down by the day's burdens. Her gentle touch steadied his heart, calming the anxiety beneath his calm facade. Each person she touched, though unaware, felt the subtle influence of her guidance. The night itself seemed to shift around her as she moved, eager to share the secrets she sought to honor. She was drawn to thresholds, the quiet spaces between states, the doorways between wakefulness and sleep, what was known and what remained unseen. These areas hummed with potential, small pulses that most would overlook. But Hecate moved among them like a soft breeze, careful not to disturb, yet shaping those moments with her unseen touch. She thought of her many faces, her endless forms, each reflecting the world she interacted with. In her silence, she held ancient wisdom. Nothing is ever truly lost, and endings are often disguised as beginnings. She reminded the world that transitions, no matter how small, are important, and the spaces between moments hold real magic. Each shadow she passed seemed less intimidating, and every silence felt less empty, because her presence wove calm into the fabric of the night. In that soft darkness, Hecate became more than a goddess of thresholds. She became a companion to everyone journeying through the quiet hours. She was the gentle hand guiding a wandering soul, the quiet protector ensuring even the most fragile beginnings could take root. She taught the world that change doesn't have to be sudden or frightening, that wisdom can unfold gradually,
and comfort can exist even in the darkest places. So she walked, endlessly and peacefully, her torches illuminating the unseen, her steps stirring the silent currents of life. In every whisper of wind and every subtle shift of shadow, she was there. She was eternal and untouchable, yet intimately close, an ever-watchful presence that softly spoke to those willing to listen. And in her passage, the world remembered. Even in darkness, there is guidance. Even in silence, there is wisdom. And even in the space between worlds, there is comfort, gentle and endless. As dawn cast its soft light across the horizon, Hecate lingered in the quiet space between night and day. Shadows still clung to the earth, and the first hints of the sun began to touch the world. She moved with the patience of centuries, barely making a stir in the morning air. The paths she walked were often invisible, forgotten by mortals, yet she knew them all. The secret trails, hidden clearings, and places where the world seemed to pause and breathe. These paths held memories of those who had walked them, and of moments long past, echoes of choices, joys, and fears that once existed. Hecate's footsteps traced these memories softly. Her torches flickered in the dim light, revealing fragments of forgotten stories. She was neither hasty nor intrusive, letting each echo find its proper place before moving on. She wove a quiet continuity into the ever-changing tapestry of life. At the meeting of hidden trails and unseen crossroads, Hecate felt drawn to the delicate balance between motion and stillness. Some souls wandered without purpose, their minds lost in doubt or worry. Others stayed too long in fear, hesitant to move forward. To each she offered a subtle nudge of guidance, a soft reassurance that their next step, no matter how uncertain, could be taken safely. She did not command or rush. Her influence was a gentle suggestion, aligning quietly with the rhythm of the universe. In the spaces between mortal steps, Hecate noticed the small miracles often overlooked. She saw the sway of a crooked yet resilient branch, the distant song of a bird, unhurried and confident in its flight, caught her attention. The glimmer of water catching the first light of the day revealed depth and reflection. She understood that the world's quiet power lay not in grand gestures, but in these subtle, persistent truths. Her mind drifted to those she had touched in shadowed nights past, guiding the lost and protecting the weary. Each encounter left a trace, a faint line in the grand design of life, connecting the living to the unseen and the mortal to the divine. Hecate walked these traces with reverence, knowing that even the smallest choice could ripple outward, affecting lives far beyond her immediate view. Throughout it all, she remained both an observer and a participant, a guardian whose presence was felt rather than seen. Her torches illuminated the way not just for those walking physical paths, but also for those traveling the more obscure routes of thought, heart, and soul. She reminded the world that every journey, no matter how quiet or hidden, held meaning. Every fork in a path was a moment of potential. Every shadow offered space for reflection, and every step provided an opportunity for grace. As the first golden rays of sunlight reached the highest branches, Hecate's form seemed to blur with the morning mist. This was a gentle reminder that guidance could be subtle, power could be soft, and presence could be eternal without being intrusive. She left behind the echo of her passage, a calm presence that lingered in the air, as if the world itself had paused to recognize her touch. In that quiet acknowledgement, the forgotten paths were no longer lost. They had been remembered, honored, and gently illuminated, ready to welcome the next traveler seeking solace or direction in the soft light of a new day. As twilight softened the world, Hecate paused on a quiet hill. The air shimmered with the faint silver glow of the rising moon. Shadows lengthened, stretching lazily across the earth, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. In this gentle half-light she listened, not just to the sounds of the night, but to the whispers of the world itself, the subtle language of existence that few mortals could hear.
The moon, a distant observer of countless generations, reflected Hecate's calm presence. Its silver beams touched the surfaces of lakes and rivers, revealing glimpses of what lay hidden beneath the ordinary. In those reflections, she saw thoughts, emotions, and the unseen currents of desire and doubt. She realized that guidance wasn't always about clear paths or directions. It could be found in the delicate stirrings of heart and mind, in quiet moments when choices whispered rather than shouted. Hecate's hands, gentle and deliberate, brushed the air as if smoothing invisible threads. Each thread connected a soul, a decision, a moment of reflection. Some were ready to unravel, while others were tight with tension, holding secrets yet to be spoken. With her presence, the tension eased. She did not force clarity or understanding. Instead, she let it arise naturally, like mist lifting from the ground at dawn. The world did not need haste. She moved with patience, knowing that some truths reveal themselves to those willing to wait. From the shadows, nocturnal creatures stirred, sensing the quiet energy of her watchfulness. Owls took flight, their wings whispering through the night, while foxes padded softly through the underbrush, unseen but felt. Hecate's steps matched theirs, a rhythm acknowledging life in its many delicate forms. Even the breeze seemed to pause, curling around her torches as if to carry her quiet guidance to those wandering unknowingly beneath the stars. Tonight, she thought, would be a night for listening, not for answering, but for understanding. Voices, faint and fragmented, called from hidden corners of the world. Mortal voices, divine echoes, the quiet sorrow of choices made and unmade. Hecate received each one, holding them in the calm clarity of her presence. In doing so, she reminded the world that even the smallest whisper carries weight, and that silence can guide as powerfully as any spoken word. The moon climbed higher, bathing the hilltop in its soft glow. Hecate remained still, a guardian at the edge of night and day, linking the seen and unseen. In the gentle hush of evening, she was neither distant nor intrusive. She was the quiet certainty that all who wander, whether lost or searching, are never truly alone. Every flicker of torchlight, every silver reflection, every rustle in the trees offered silent reassurance. The world is vast, but it is also held gently by a watchful presence. As the first cool mists began to curl along the ground, Hecate looked up at the stars, each one a faint pulse of ancient memory, reminding her that all paths, visible or hidden, are part of a greater design. In that quiet embrace of night and moonlight, she became a steady heartbeat in the dark, a guide whose presence reassured the restless, prepared the wandering, and honored the quiet truths that shaped the world in subtle, ongoing ways. Morning came slowly and gently, as if the world was hesitant to leave the night behind. Hecate stood at the edge of a quiet forest where the shadows of ancient trees stretched long and uninterrupted. The air was calm, carrying only the light scent of damp earth and distant flowers. This reminded her that life and decay, growth and rest, always moved together in a silent rhythm. In the stillness of the woods, she could feel the echoes of forgotten paths. These were not roads of stone or wood, but the invisible trails of thought, memory, and choice. Countless souls had walked these paths, some lost, some searching, all leaving traces that sparkled like dew in the early light. Hecate followed them with gentle steps, her presence neither urgent nor intrusive. She was simply aware, guiding and preserving the balance between what was and what might be. Every footfall stirred a leaf, and every breath carried a whisper. In that quiet, the forest seemed to breathe with her. There were no maps or signs here, only the subtle pulse of life and the faint trails of decisions. Hecate's eyes, reflecting the soft gold of morning, traced each flicker of possibility. She understood that guiding often meant watching, waiting, and allowing the world to reveal its own path. As she walked, the memories of those who had traveled this way long ago surrounded her like mist. Warriors on the brink of battle, children exploring the world, seekers of knowledge and comfort, all left faint echoes in the earth. Hecate honored them with her presence, quietly acknowledging that even the smallest choices send ripples outward, affecting lives beyond sight and time. She did not interfere. She simply held the space between paths, a guardian of what was known and unknown. From a distance, she heard the faint call of a river, murmuring over rocks and roots. Hecate approached its banks, allowing the cool water to lap at her feet, grounding her in the present as she navigated the unseen. Water, always flowing but never the same, reminded her of the lives she influenced, the choices she observed, and the delicate threads linking beginnings to endings. She bent to the stream, tracing its subtle eddies and ripples, knowing that guidance, like water, often operates quietly, shaping without force. As the sun rose higher, casting warmth through the trees, Hecate paused at a crossroads in the forest. Unlike the roads of stone and city, this was a meeting point of spirit, thought, and hidden intention. She lingered, her gaze sweeping over each concealed trail, aware that somewhere, someone awaited her guidance, not through grand gestures, but through the silent reassurance that the world is watched, cared for, and understood. And so she remained, a guardian of quiet ways, a witness to unspoken choices, a gentle presence moving through the hidden paths of existence. Every rustle of leaves, every glimmer of light on water, every faint scent of moss and earth reminded her that even in stillness there is movement, even in silence there is guidance. By the time the forest awakened fully, Hecate had disappeared from view, leaving only the soft echo of her passing. In that echo, every soul wandering the forgotten paths could sense her watchful care, subtle, steady, and infinitely patient, an eternal promise that even the hidden ways are never truly without guidance.
And so, the story of Hecate comes to a gentle close. It's not with a bang, but with a soft exhale, like the last flicker of torchlight at a quiet crossroads. She remains ever present, moving through thresholds, guarding spaces in between, guiding souls and witnessing life's flow with patient wisdom. In every shadow, in the hush of twilight, in the subtle turning of a key or the crossing of a path, her presence lingers. She is the calm in transition, the quiet force that balances chaos and foresight, life and death, beginnings and endings. Her power is not loud or blinding. It is gentle, enduring, and infinite,
woven into the world so seamlessly that we may feel it without ever fully seeing it. As you drift deeper into sleep, imagine her torchlight softly brushing against your path, illuminating unseen corners, easing uncertainty, and offering guidance without demand. Feel the peace of knowing that there is always a guardian of thresholds, a guide for souls, and a witness to every choice, every step, every quiet moment of your life. Hecate's story reminds us that some of the greatest powers are subtle. Some of the strongest forces move without haste, and some of the deepest wisdom is found in stillness. Let her eternal presence cradle your thoughts, and let the gentle rhythm of her world carry you into rest, into dreams, and into the soft, endless night. Sleep now beneath the watchful gaze of Hecate. Feel the quiet magic of the liminal spaces she guards, where all is calm, all is possible, and all is serene.